Thank you, Professor Tom Longden, and welcome to the third workshop of energy economics, which is entitled Economics Challenges for Energy, and it is held in the Fondazione Retos. Let's start with the first question concerning your field of research, and it is about the transport sector. Can we ask, how much can we decarbonize our transport sector?
Well, it's an interesting question because it really depends on a few key factors. What you mean by transport sector? So it will be very different across light-duty vehicles, freight and rail. It also depends on how long it will take, how much you can spend. So really, in our research, what we're looking at is we have a core focus on light-duty vehicles at the moment. It's an area that's quite exciting because a lot of electric vehicles are coming onto the market. One of the things that we find, though, is that if we want those light-duty vehicles to become the dominant technology in that sector, it's going to take still quite a while for it to become the typical vehicle that the average family buys. What we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of niche vehicles come onto the market, but things like battery capacity, the cost, the range of these vehicles are really keeping them as fringe vehicles at the moment. Like only a certain type of person are buying these vehicles. Things like fuel efficiency and hybrid vehicles we see as something that's also helping decarbonize the transport sector in light-duty vehicles. It's not necessarily a shift straight to electric vehicles or plug-in vehicles. You see a lot of fuel efficiency improvements that are currently happening and have happened since the 90s, and they do a lot. And then, of course, in many countries, US, EU, have mandates for biofuels. They're coming online. So at least for light-duty vehicles, a lot of the decarbonisation is occurring in the next 10 to 20 years, still from fuel efficiency improvements, some fuel switching, and also some mobility projects. Freight is a bit more tricky. Freight is quite a difficult thing to try to decarbonise. With both light-duty vehicles and freight, and in even rail, mobility and transport, it's a sector that hasn't decarbonised all that much in the last 10, 20 years. In the OECD, you see other sectors decarbonising a lot more. Transport is one where, as per capita emissions, have either kept relatively constant or have maybe increased. So decarbonising freight is one question that we're also looking at. And to be honest, there's a lot of difficulty talking about freight because freight's very diverse. There's land, sea, air. And then basically to decarbonise that, you're looking at similar things to light-duty vehicles. However, the options for some sort of breakthrough technology, that's a lot more difficult. Breakthrough technology in light-duty vehicles, such as electric vehicle, I myself and my research shows that the case is more optimistic for something like freight. It's difficult. It's currently a lot of the research is looking at logistical demand, fuel efficiency improvements, having more efficiency in the delivery of these products, and that's really where a lot of the future's coming in. And of course, again, with fuel switching, you have the biofuels coming in there. But then, you still do have a big dependence on diesel vehicles with fuel efficiency improvements and improving the logistics. So basically improving the logistical structure so that you use less energy in delivering the same demand. Areas like air are really interesting, simply because one of the way we look at the research is we keep a constant demand. Demand for transport is relatively fixed. People demand transport very highly. And one of the interesting things is that we're looking at and that we're thinking of is how will air travel change, not so much in Europe, America, but then in Asia, in the developing Asian countries. And that will have a lot to do with decarbonisation of transport. Basically, a lot of the research we've looked at is decarbonising transport is difficult. One of the things that's interesting is that if light duty vehicles, so personal transport, can be a small percentage of emissions, and so transport sometimes doesn't get discussed when you're talking about climate policy. But if things go wrong, if you don't get this breakthrough, and people demand a lot more, and with the growth in some regions, especially Asia increasing a lot, you see a lot of emissions coming from transport where a solution needs to be found.
So you mentioned the first answer that a lot of things has been improved during the 10 years in the transport technology by introducing more efficient fuels and using hybrid cars and hybrid vehicles. But can we ask, what can we expect from the electric vehicle?
Well, expectations about electric vehicle, if you look at the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a lot of electric vehicles coming on the market. And there was quite a bit of excitement, and that's quelled at the moment. Part of that is because electric vehicles are expensive, and at the moment they are definitely a fringe vehicle, and our research shows that that will continue for some time. Hybrids are becoming a little bit more commercially successful. One interesting thing happening in hybrids is they're moving towards different types of batteries to make them a bit more cost efficient. One of the ways we look at it is some of these hybrid vehicles that are coming online, they're really a very fuel efficient traditional vehicle. Having a Prius was a real standout factor, a statement. But then having an SUV that has a very small hybrid label, I see that in the next 5 years, 10 years to be really the thing that's happening. With plug-ins and electric drive vehicles, I think the market will stay a lot more niche, simply because the costs are so high. And so a lot of the modelling work that we've done and that we're talking about today is basically looking at vehicles as which vehicle or which type of vehicle in the light duty vehicle sector dominates. So what is the average vehicle that is bought on the market, or the dominant vehicle on the market? And our results show that even with increased research and decreased costs of batteries, that it will be, after 10, 15 years, that even more possibly, that these vehicles will become the dominant vehicle. You'll have increasing shares. You'll see a lot more electric drive vehicles, plug-in vehicles on the roads. But as a percentage of the market, it will stay relatively small. There will only be a fraction of the market who will want to pay this, in some cases, quite a high premium for electric drive vehicle. I think the average family, the average consumer, would prefer to buy a very fuel-efficient car, be it a hybrid or a current market, or some sort of mixture there. With a full electric drive vehicle or a plug-in vehicle, we see that market is staying very niche for the sort of short to medium term. If you want to talk about actual climate policy and looking at sort of emission targets that the IPCC talks about, a 2-degree target by 2100, in that case, electric drive vehicles become extremely important. A lot of the integrated assessment models, not only the one we work on, but others from around the world, you see a lot of decarbonisation in electricity. And so in our model, we do see electric drive vehicles being very important for the future of climate change policy. However, it will take a while. So research into these technologies is very important. However, talking about what the dominant vehicle type that you'll see on the streets in Europe, America, other regions like that, these cars will, unless there's a massive breakthrough, a radical breakthrough in the cost, it will remain niche.
Well, indeed, decarbonising transport sector is very difficult, and surely need more time to talk about it, deeply and thoroughly. Thank you very much, Professor Tom Longden, and see you soon.
No worries. Thank you.